It feels like making friends was so much easier in school when we were seeing people every day, meeting new people from classes, extracurriculars, mutual friends, dorm living situations. Then the post college scatter happens when people graduate, they move to new cities, and this is, of course, wonderful. People are starting new chapters, stepping into who they are, exploring new opportunities, but it can lead to some long distance friendships, which is fine and great still because FaceTime and Zoom have made maintaining long distance friendships so much easier, but it's still not quite the same as in person friendships. And sometimes with friends, you just grow apart as you grow as people. And even if you don't grow apart, people just become so busy with work, relationships, adulting, and whatnot. And sometimes trying to meet up can look a little like this. And if you don't meet people through your work as an adult, it can be pretty difficult to meet new people without really putting yourself out there. So at the beginning of 2023, I made it a personal resolution of mine to make new in person friends and try to build in person community. I was just finding that most of my friend interactions were through FaceTime and Zoom because of distance. And well, I still love my friends. I'm still close with them. I still check in with them and I still have the Zooms and FaceTimes. I just wanted more in person friends and community because it's just not quite the same. And I'm happy to say that I've stuck to that resolution. And I just kind of want to share some of what I've learned and encountered along the way as I've been navigating that. So, if you've moved to a new city, your friends have moved away, you've maybe grown apart from your friends, or you're just looking to meet new people and make new friends. If anything that I've said has resonated with you so far, then this video is for you. So let's get started. All right, so the first step is going to be meeting people. One way to do this that has been the most successful for me is the app Meetup. It's been popping off recently. I first joined in 2019 and there wasn't that much happening in the past. I think moving out of the pandemic, everyone's really wanting to engage in social activities. And just the past year or so, I've seen a lot of like 20s, 30s social groups pop up, and they'll just do all sorts of events like bowling, trivia nights, hiking, going to brunch or dinner, or, all sorts of local events and whatnot. So that is a great way to just meet other people and go out and do social things. You can also, of course, join groups based off of interests. So things like arts and crafts, hiking or walking groups, sports groups, dance classes, volunteer groups. Like there are so many interests and different type of groups on Meetup. It just depends on what your interests are and what's available in your area. I'd recommend personally going to a couple different events and different groups and kind of testing out, seeing what events, what groups maybe you click best with or you enjoy being there the most. And once you've found a group or a few that you really like, keep going to events from that group because you'll start to form kind of like a sense of community because you'll also see other regulars that attend that group. And so it becomes like a bit more of an organic way of meeting people. You get to know people kind of slowly over time, shared experiences. There's also the familiarity effect or mere exposure effect. And if you do meet someone that you want to hang out outside of the meetup groups and you want to spend more time with and develop potentially a deeper friendship with, you can suggest doing an activity together. Offer something to do that's low key, maybe out in public rather than at one of your guys' homes. And ideally, it could be something related to what you've talked about or what the group is about. The second piece of advice would be to give them your number instead of asking for theirs. This is a piece of advice that I really like for dating in general too, and I think it applies here as well. But when you ask someone for their number, it puts them in an awkward position if they don't want to give you their number, right? They might give you a fake number or try to weasel out of it, or they might not be super comfortable. And so if you give them your number, there's no awkwardness. They don't have to call you, they can delete it afterwards. It really just takes the pressure off. Also, it's kind of an interest signaler. Like if they want to hang out with you more, then they can put in that effort. And so if they reach out, then it kind of is more of a mutual thing and it shows that they're interested as well. So, yeah. And overall, Meetup is I think a great option because as I said, there's a sense of community there. And with a group, you can kind of get to talk to different people. There's group talking dynamics. And it's just, as I said, I feel like a more organic way of getting to know people more slowly. And yeah, so I think Meetup is a great option. Another way to meet people and find local social groups in your area is by just searching online, going to local bulletin boards at libraries and coffee shops. There's Sierra Club, which I know is a nationwide hiking group. So there might be a chapter near your area where you can go hiking with local people and meet people. There's Rotaract Club, which is a volunteer networking type of group, and I think it's international. There's also just local volunteer groups, book clubs, choirs, sports groups. You can just, search around based off of your interests. Another way to meet people that can become close friends is the idea that new close friends might already be in your circle. So if you are on social media where you interact with friends, acquaintances, old classmates, people like that, if you just kind of like the stuff that they post and you really resonate with their online presence and who they seem to be, then you can, interact with them and respond to their stories or chat. And then eventually, if you guys live in the same area, you can maybe suggest meeting up, catching up over coffee, maybe doing some type of activity that you're both interested in that you've talked about. If you both like art, for example, you guys could go on a paint date in a park or something like that. Sometimes there are people that maybe you just didn't get to know well enough before, or circumstances pulled you apart a bit, or maybe just who you both are now is you're more aligned in your interests and values. Just as people can grow apart, people can grow more aligned and more compatible. So that is another way to find new friends, though they're not necessarily new, but you know what I mean. Grow closer with certain people in your circle if you want to. And of course, there's also Bumble BFF. I do think this is a great way to meet people because these are people who are also looking for having more friends in their life. If they're on the app, they're probably invested in trying to make that happen and putting in time and effort, and they're prioritizing it. But as I said earlier, it can be a little bit awkward, just like first dates in the dating world. And honestly, friendship dating like this is a lot like dating, just minus the romance, sex, and exclusivity. So, because it can be a little bit awkward, especially if you've never met each other, there can be a bit more pressure. And so, give yourself grace, give them grace. If it is a little awkward, that's totally fine. Focus more on potential red flags, green flags. That's also, I think, just as important. And just whether or not you enjoy their company and if you guys connect rather than if there's a little bit of awkwardness. Likely, it will become more comfortable as you guys get to know each other better and build that trust and comfortability with each other. But if you don't, if it just gets more and more awkward each time, then that might be an indicator that maybe y'all just aren't compatible with each other as friendships. And that's fine. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person or they're a bad person or you're boring or they're boring or whatever. It's just that maybe you two together just aren't meant to be. But do, as I said, don't pay attention to awkwardness at the beginning because it could get better with time, and it likely will. Though it is good to go in with some questions or ideas of questions that you could ask. The best type of questions to ask are open ended questions that will, encourage deeper conversation rather than just yes or no answers. Here are some open ended questions that I like that I've kind of saved. I have it in a little notes app in my phone. It's also a good idea to just briefly go over their profile before the date and just see what their interests are, if there's any shared interests, if there's something in their profile that you can ask them about. Sometimes people will have something on their profile like, ask me about blank, or maybe they went to like a festival or they traveled somewhere. You can ask them about that. Or, shared interests, you guys can spark up a conversation over shared interests. So yeah, just look over their profile. You can also circle back on something that you've talked about in the chats. For example, if they said that they had something stressful coming up at work, you can maybe ask them how it went. Stuff like that. Build on what you've already built, what's on their profile, and ask open ended questions. So that's meeting people. But what about actually becoming friends with someone? You're probably going to meet a lot of people if you're putting yourself out there, and that's a great thing. But it might be a little overwhelming if there's just a lot of people. There's only so much time in a week that you can devote to seeing people one on one and going to social events. You might not click with everyone, and that is totally okay. Don't take it personally. Do genuinely try to get to know people though before writing them off as not compatible with you. So, when deciding who you want to invest more time and energy into and go deeper and build a friendship with, one thing that has helped me is something that I actually got from a dating book called How Not to Die Alone by Logan Ury. She's a behavioral scientist and the head of relationship science at Hinge. She has this tool called the Post Date 8, and these are 8 questions to ask yourself after a date to decide whether or not you want to keep seeing this person. And I thought that it also is very helpful for friendship dates. It helps you kind of focus on how you're feeling about the connection. And so this is my friendship version of the post date 8. So these are questions to ask yourself when you're not sure if you want to keep building a friendship with someone or not. Ideally, you would be, able to be friends and make deeper friendships and close friendships with everyone that we click with. But unfortunately, there's limited time that we have in a week. And so we have to kind of figure out how we want to spend that and who we want to invest that time in and go deeper with. So the last main thing is to maintain the friendships that you are making and that you're building. It takes time. It takes patience because, we grow close to people over time, especially when you're seeing each other less than we did when we were younger and made friendships really quickly. If you're seeing people maybe once a week rather than every day at school, it can take a little longer for that familiarity and comfortability to build, but do keep putting in effort. I think that's incredibly important to make time and space for friends. One way that you can continue to deepen friendships that is also time efficient, which sounds weird, but is combining seeing people with things that you have to do or that everyone kind of does, like food and eating meals. So after work, going out to dinner together or cooking a meal at one of your guys' places and sharing a meal together. Everyone has to eat dinner or should be eating dinner. If you're not eating dinner, go eat dinner. But yeah, and also if you work out a lot, you can work out together or do some type of sports thing. It doesn't have to be intense. Like you could just toss a frisbee around in a park with someone or something after work. Something that gets you outside if possible, gets you moving and kind of hanging out in a pressure-free way where you can just hang out, but you don't have to talk too much if you don't want to, just kind of like more chill ways of hanging out. Things that even if you've had like a long day at work or you're tired, it's something that you can look forward to and isn't too energy draining. Also, like I said in the post 8 questions, ideally, this person is someone who doesn't drain your energy and someone that you feel good around. And so it won't be too exhausting to hang out with them after work. You can also make these rituals like, oh, you do dinner every Monday night, or you play pickleball every Thursday night, or you do yoga every Saturday morning, or, you can build rituals out of it if you want to, and then you're seeing that person every week. Don't be afraid to reach out and initiate. Someone has to do it, right, in order for two people to meet up, especially in the beginning. Ideally, this will be fairly equally split between you two. Both people ideally will both be initiating somewhat equally, but yeah, don't be afraid to be that person, especially if it's earlier on. Don't be afraid to be that first person that kind of reaches out and initiates hangouts. Someone's got to do it. But on the other hand, don't be too pushy. Don't push someone past what they are currently capable of giving. Just test the waters, but don't overdo it. If you keep reaching out and the other person just isn't super responsive or is always busy or always can't make it for whatever reason, maybe pull back a bit and see if they initiate. As I said before, it's a two-way street and both people should be putting in effort and showing interest. It's also important to keep in mind that, especially as adults, like people are busy. Don't take it too personally if you don't see someone as much as you'd like to. Initiate and show interest and engage, but also know when to pull back as well. Another thing that I've learned as well, take the friendship for where it's at. Maybe you'll see someone a lot one month, but then you'll barely see them the next month just because of things happening in life. People might have guests visiting, they might be traveling, they might be sick, they might just be super swamped with work. Like there's just so many things that can happen just because someone kind of goes off the grid for a little while too. You can always check back in a couple weeks later and just see where they're at. And some friends you might just not see as much. You just might see them occasionally. They might just be like an occasional person that you see, and that's okay too. For kind of regular friends that you see on a more regular basis and kind of do the more mundane kind of things with that are kind of more become a piece of your life and routine, look for people who are also looking for that. Don't try to squeeze it out of someone who doesn't have the time or energy to do that and to be that. So, yeah, I think my overall biggest tip would be to focus on people who are interested in getting to know you and spending time with you and also whose company you enjoy and you like them as people. Those are the people to look out for and to invest your time and energy into. And I think a really big thing is mutual respect. Respect for your time, for your values and who you are. I think that's something that's not talked about as much but is really important. So, yeah, I think it's underrated. Mutual respect. That's a biggie. So, yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope maybe there's some helpful tidbits that you can take with you. Go make some friends and report back to me in the comments. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye. It is so bright.